Tabletopped will start after the following messages.
What is Slay the Stars? Oh. Come with us and enjoy a chaotic D&D hot pot, a dash of cosmic fantasy, a few cloves of dark fairy tales. And that's the entire bottle of shenaniganery. Oh, dear. Oh, no. Listen in every other Tuesday at noon Eastern Standard Time on any major streaming platform. SlayTheStars.com. Persomnia ad Astra.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletop. Today, we have our friend, our savior, Mac.
It's me. I'm here to save you. Come with me if you want to live.
Yeah, Mac's here to save us from the indecision we all feel around the holidays.
What do we buy when we go to the game store and there's so many games?
Yeah, and today we're going to talk specifically about two-player and deck-building games or card games.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of them out there. Mac and I really love this type of game.
Yeah.
I love deck builders. I think they're so fun. And so let's talk a little bit about it. Where do you want to start? You want to start with deck builders or two-player games?
Let's start light. Let's
Okay.
start with like a simple, light two-player game about Watergate.
Okay.
About Nixon?
Frost Nixon.
Yeah, about Nixon and the newspaper. So Watergate is a game for two players only.
Yeah.
It is a tug-of-war asymmetric game based around playing cards from your hand that do nasty things to your opponent.
Yeah.
And the newspaper is trying to basically draw a line on a very satisfyingly made cork board looking board between Nixon's collaborators and Nixon.
Yeah.
And if they draw a line between a few of those, 2 or 3, I can't remember, then they win.
Yeah.
Nixon just needs to make it to the end of his presidency. He just needs to make it to the end of his term.
I'm not doing anything wrong except commit crimes.
Yeah. Well, you know, whatever. Yeah. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
It's a super fun game. The theme is very accessible to people that don't normally play board games. And it's really quick. It's only about 20 minutes.
Oh, that's so nice.
And it's like a tug of war. Yeah. It's just like a tug of war where it's moving back and forth. There's opportunities for big, like, you've activated my trap card, says Nixon, like kind of stuff. And there's also like opportunities. So there's opportunities.
I play Pot of Greed.
Yeah. That draws me 2 cards. I get 2 files from the Watergate Hotel. Yeah, so it's very simple. It's very cool. There's a lot of depth to it if you want to go there.
Yeah.
But it's also very accessible because most of the game is read the cards in your hand.
Yeah.
They tell you what they do.
Exactly.
Play one of them to do that.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it includes like a lot of things that a lot of other games have. There's a bag you reach in to pull out random tokens from. There's a little tug-of-war track with very satisfying to move little wooden pieces. There's a cork board with lines, so you can do your best Charlie Day Pepe Sylvia impression while you're playing it. It's really fun. It's really small box. It's really simple. It's a great two-player game.
Yeah. How much will that run you?
25, 30 bucks.
That's a great price for a great game.
Wicked inexpensive. And the rulebook also includes like lore. Which I think is very funny.
Life lore?
Yes, because it's all like real people.
I think we call that history.
Wait, what?
What? These were real people?
Wait, World War II happened?
That's horrifying.
Oh my god! The rest of the podcast were just screaming. That makes a really good audio, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the so it's it does include like a lot of history about the event, about all these collaborators. All of the cards represent like real people and real things that happened.
Hell yeah.
All the like conspirator cards and things like that. Really, really cool. So I would recommend that for a inexpensive 2-player game to get for a partner that really likes board games. Like if you're not super into board games and your partner really likes them, that's a great thing to get them and say, I'll play this with you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Even if you say it begrudgingly, it only lasts 20 minutes.
Yeah, you'll be able
done
to get through
soon.
it. One sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum,
Yeah.
I think, that I really love. We both really love this game, but we haven't played it too often just because it's a little bit of a whole deal. But Inhuman Conditions
my
so
God.
good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Talk about Inhuman Conditions.
So
Nick.
Inhuman Conditions is basically the Blade Runner test to figure out whether you're a robot or not. And so one person plays the Blade Runner, who is going through a series of questions that you can improvise or just read off a card, depending on how comfortable you are with that sort of thing. And the other person is either a human, a robot, or a violent robot. And each have their own win conditions. So a human, you both just have to get through the interview without the Blade Runner being like, you're a fucking robot, and killing you. The second one is being a robot, you will have a glitch. That is essentially like you can only, whenever you use a sentence, you have to put a number in there. So like, okay, 1, I didn't do it. 2, like that sort of thing. And you have to repeat that sort of thing. Every time you don't do your glitch, you have to do a punishment, which is agreed upon by both people before the game. Like you have to touch the table with both hands. You have to, scratch your ear. But then the thing is that the Blade Runner also knows that that's your glitch. So if you keep scratching your ear, the guy's going to be like, you're a fucking robot that's just going against its programming. And then the third is a violent robot who is trying to kill you and has 3 objectives to get through. Like, for example, it could be mention the name Alice 3 times. And then the second thing could be like touch your wrist, like your left wrist with your right hand 5 times. Like you have to do all these things. And once you do all of them, you touch the table with both hands for 5 seconds. And that essentially means you've leapt across the table and killed this other person. So it is so fun because like the thing is that nobody knows is that as a human being, you have glitches that you are always going to be doing. And as a Blade Runner, you are going to find out that the person, your friend or your partner or whatever, you're going to find their ticks really fast and going to be like, are they doing that on purpose or not? And it is so fun. It's honestly can also be a party game in which people watch this interview take place. It's also very fun for like the theatrical person in your life because every time you pick either or you draw a card that will tell you if you're a robot, human, or violent robot, you also draw cards that are like professions like butcher or butler to the stars or whatever. And you make up a name and there's this whole process that's like very high production value. You have like this cool piece of paper that you can record everything about the test on. There are decks of cards that are designed to ferret out glitches that the person who's giving the test can use, or they can just start talking off of things that they're noticing. Like, hey, Mac, I noticed that you keep touching your ear. Can you say that last sentence again, but not touch your ear? And then you're like, if you're a robot and that's your glitch, you're like, shit, like, how do I do this? But then you can also be like, if you're a human, you can be like, yeah, of course, here it is. And then the person can be like, It's very, very, very
so good. And it also, it very easily for the interviewer, especially, I've found, like, it gets you enrolled like so quickly, so easily, and it creates like a power dynamic,
which is so interesting. Yeah,
it's a really cool social experiment, which is why it's so fun to watch. And it's like, like as the interviewer, you really almost immediately get into character as like, okay, this is all business and we're here to do the thing.
Yeah.
And like, because you have a script you need to read off of to start that kind of like gets you in that mode.
Yep.
And it really does feel like the beginning of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
It really does.
It really does. And there's like a timer on your phone that has like a voice message that goes off and then gives you 5 minutes for the interview. But there's also like stamps, like the person who is the interviewer has a human and a robot stamp. And at any time they can stamp the card one way or the other. If you stamp robot before the robot kills you, you actually win. If you hit human and they're human, you both win. If you hit human and they're a robot, when you shake their hands at the end of the interview, they are told to like essentially shake your hand in a weird way. And that indicates that you kind of messed up and you missed the signs.
Funniest one though is when they are a human and you say they're a robot, what you have to do is the game instructs you to write a letter to their family apologizing for having them decommissioned because they were a human being all along. And you have to take, I think, the robot stamp, and you have to stamp your own hand with it to mark that, like, you fucked up. Yeah.
It's such a good game. It's so fun. Like I said, you can play it in a party setting. You can also just play it with friends, and it's like a blast. I really like having this game with like 4 people, because then you have the people kind of over the shoulder looking at what the person is and just seeing what happens. Also, if you play with like improv or theater people, it can be very funny. Like, just because you're coming up with like a backstory on the fly, and it's very like, I'm a butler to the stars. My name's Jersey Mike's or whatever, you know, like you just
and then I'm like the interviewer being like, okay, so you're a robot. Like immediately I'm like, all right, Nick's a robot.
Because like the interviewer can be like, Jersey Mike's like the food chain. So like you have this fake name. It's very fun. It's a really good game. I suggest it highly. It's going to run you a little bit more money, but the quality of the materials are really good. I think that it goes for like $50.
I think so.
I don't know if it's on Amazon because it is an independent publisher.
It's more accessible now.
It used to be. It was like a Kickstarter originally, but now it's like I got it at PAX Unplugged. It's a blast. I really enjoy it.
So good.
Cool.
So good.
So those are 2-player games. Do you have another one, or should we move on to card games?
Let's actually. I mean, we could talk about one that's in the middle.
Yeah, let's talk about one that's in the middle. We'll take a break and then go purely
Android Netrunner.
Aha.
So Android Netrunner was a living card game.
This is one of the first games that you and I just like played together
at
your apartment.
Yeah. And I got the core set a long time ago. Living card game. It has a really cool story behind it.
Yes.
Where basically it was Fantasy Flight Games, and it was this living card game, and it had a bunch of expansions.
R.I.P. Fantasy Flight.
Yeah, I know.
They don't do much anymore.
No. It had a really good kind of like competitive scene. The game is really good, and then it got discontinued.
Yeah.
The fans went, no, actually it won't be discontinued, and they created a company called Null Signal. You can look them up. And they now come out with new expansions all the time for completely free. Wow. That you can print and play at home.
That's amazing.
There is an active tournament scene for these new expansions.
Hell yeah.
It's so cool. You can play it. I think they have some settings of the game where you can play like with the old cards too. It's really neat. It's really cool.
So this could run you $0 if you just like essentially print these out at a Staples or whatever. Maybe get them to laminate it on cardstock or something.
The best thing to do, what our friend Anthony does, he's really into this stuff, is you print them out. Yeah. Right. Just print them out at like at home or at Kinko's or whatever. You just cut them with a paper cutter. You get like a 800 pack of Pokemon energies from Amazon for $5. Yep. You put them in a sleeve with the Pokemon card backing it. You're done.
Yeah, and you have a nice like quality sleeved card. Yeah,
easy.
The thing about this game, so we played with the original decks.
We did.
We didn't play with the old ones.
We did.
Or the newer ones. I lost every single time. I still had a good time.
Yeah.
It's a good game.
The thing is, the game, and this is like a thing that has often been said about Netrunner, it's like it's a game of hidden information where and it's asymmetrical. So there's a runner and a corporation. The runner is trying to hack into the corporation servers and steal assets from them.
Yes.
The corporation is trying to stop the runner from doing that and score their own assets by protecting their servers with what is called ICE. Mm-hmm. Already we're getting into the weeds of the terminology of this game, which is a problem. I will admit, the terminology just goes on and on and on and on and on. Yeah. There's a runner and there's ICE and there's so many different
This is a thing about the game that I will say is something I would put in like the negative column, is that, like you said, it is a little bit of jargon when you're reading the rules.
It's jargony.
And also, it's not a game that you're like, hey, we can just learn as we play for a new person.
No.
Because you are going to just fucking destroy them.
Yes.
Because it is complicated. It, like you said, it's sort of like whoever understands everything the best and like understands their deck and like even understands the other person's deck is really helpful. Like it takes time. It like the price is $0 or $5 if you want to do the Pokemon energies. Mm-hmm. So like that's great. This is for someone who you guys want to like play this multiple times. You want to play this like focused and you want to get good at it. It's like you have to invest.
Yeah, and actually, because of the way that null signal works, it could almost be what are those Christmas swaps? But you have to make it.
Oh yeah, the secret makers.
Secret maker, yeah, something like that. Like you could do one of those where you could make your friend that loves board games a core set of the null signal thing, which I've played with the core set, and it's really fun.
Yeah.
Straight out of the box. And also it's so good for that person in your life that like they love cyberpunk.
Mm-hmm. It is cyberpunk themed. I think that's sort of implied by what we said, but it's good saying it. It's like cool art. The theme is very cool, and also very you feel clear. It as you play. Like I said, I lost every time, but like I felt like I was competitive until like the last 5 minutes of every round, and I was like, shit.
yeah. Well, and it's also like there are big swings that you can make. You always kind of have a chance. It's really hard to be completely iced out in the game. Unless you're like brand new and you're just learning it, and then there is a point where like in chess, for example, like your opponent will be like, you concede now.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah. So I would say this is for someone who likes chess or whatever, wants to really get to know a game.
Yes.
It's great for that, a great 2-player game. And right after this break, we're going to come back and talk about our favorite card and deck builders. All right, bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, it's your host Nick, back again to tell you about something that I am super passionate about. It's answering your questions, and man, we would love to do so in the new year. If you want to, you can go to our website, tabletoppod.com, and on the front page, you scroll down, there is a contact form. You fill it out with your burning questions for us, the hosts, and we will respond in the podcast. Just let us know if we can use your name, and we will answer your question to the best of our ability. So if you're interested, head to our website at tabletoppod.com, scroll down on that front page, and leave us a message from the contact form. We love doing mailbag episodes, and we can't wait to answer your questions in the new year. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletopped. Today, right now, we're talking about 2-player games and card-based games for the holidays, for that person in your life that you want to get them something cool. Maybe that person is yourself, like me. And now we're talking about card games. Mac, you have one that's just like ready to go.
Yep.
Why don't we start with that for our deep discussion?
Okay.
I'm just going to put out there really quick. There is a game that is so great that for that casual person in your life that you're trying to trick into becoming a card game person. Mm-hmm. It's called Epic. You can buy one deck and just split it in half. You shuffle it, split it in half. Each of those decks can be played against each other.
That's so cool.
And it's like basically Magic the Gathering keywords and very similar way to playing it. It's by the person who did Keyforge. So it's just like a solidly built game. Very cheap to get into. I think you can buy one of these intro decks for like $10.
Wait, is Epic a Richard Garfield game for real?
Yeah.
Oh, no crap.
It's really good.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's by the guy who made Magic. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you can he has expansion packs and all that kind of stuff if you want to get more into like building a deck. But if you want to trick someone to get to that point, just play Epic a couple times. It's very fun.
Or Keyforge for that matter.
Keyforge is so good. We can talk about that one later too. Let's start with the one that is like your bread and butter. I played it. It's a blast. It's so much fun. One of my favorite games, and I've only played it like 3 times. Yeah. So hit us with it, Mac.
Arkham Horror, the living card game.
So good.
So this is... Man, it's between this and like Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, but it's definitely the card game I've played the most.
Yeah.
There are currently, I think, 8 or 9 campaigns, and each of those campaigns has 8 scenarios in it, and each of the scenarios is like an hour to 3 hours, depending on how many players you have.
And going off your point, this is a great bridge for either the TTRPGer in your life that you want to get into more kind of mechanically driven games, or the opposite, if you're trying to drive a board game player towards TTRPGs. This is like in the middle of
those right in the middle.
Yeah.
And I have played all of it.
Yeah, it's so good.
All of it. It's incredible. So for those of us that aren't familiar with how the game works, basically you make a deck. The decks are only 30 cards.
Yep.
It's all cooperative.
Yep.
You can play with 1 to 4 players, so the game is playable solo. It's in a renaissance right now.
Yeah.
It is like, it's really deep into its lifespan, and it's like the most popular it's ever been.
Yeah, it's like so deep at a point where most games are starting to die off and they are starting to design a new game. This game is so popular that I could see like another like 5 to 10 campaigns to come out. Like that's how popular it is.
Because so what happened recently, and this is why I'm recommending it for a gift, is they just came out very recently with a new core set.
Ooh, I might get that.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
The new core set comes with everything that you need for 4 players to play the game. The old core set only came with like 1 of some cards, and in the game you can include 2 of each card in your deck. So
it's also important to know that like depending on how deeply you get into this game, there are classes there are like, so it's very replayable, but there's also different investigators within each class that have different cards that really suit them. And so you are building a custom deck for yourself and for your team.
Yeah.
Like if you're playing with 3 people, you can be like, I'm the guy who kills monsters. I've made a deck to kill monsters.
Yes, that's my thing. You kind of have to specialize in the game too. So yeah, you have 30 cards, and it's so funny because it's like, it's Arkham Horror, it's Lovecraft. So it's all like mundane stuff from the 20s that you like have in your deck.
Yeah.
It's like
great. A Tommy gun or whatever.
Yeah. It literally, it's like if you're the Seeker, which is like the investigative class that gets clues, which those are the things that advance the game state. It's like, I have 2 magnifying glasses, a book of lore.
Yeah.
I have like a buddy that is a biologist. Like, it's like you have that
stuff.
Allies
too, so you're kind of building a party as well. Sometimes it's very, very cool.
It's so good and it's so replayable. And it's hard.
Yeah, and it's also
it gives something to strive for.
Yeah, it's also like a choose your own adventure in some ways, because depending on how you do in the game and how you go about your successes, it will change the narrative of the campaign.
Yes.
And there are multiple endings. There are different paths to get to an ending. Like we were saying, there are allies. Sometimes an ally has sort of a story significance.
Yes.
And so if you sacrifice that ally or they die in some way, you basically go into the next thing and you read it and it will say, if Joan's cardigan is no longer on the board or something, you go to this ending kind of thing.
Favorite character. Joan's cardigan. You son of a bitch.
And also each of the classes or the playable characters all have really cool flavor. They all have abilities. They're super awesome. One of my favorites is a bounty hunter.
Tony Morgan.
Yeah, Tony Morgan, who essentially you slide into your deck a weakness in every one of these classes too. His is that he's seen a monster and he's trying to find that specific monster and kill it. So when you draw the monster comes into play and kind of takes a bunch of your resources and puts it on him. And until you kill the monster, you don't get your resources back, which is such a hard card to play when you're towards the end of a game. You're like, I don't have time.
Well, that's the thing about the game, right? It's on a very strict timer.
Yeah.
And so it's like one of those games where every action matters.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy to misplay. And because of that, it's not frustrating. It's like, that's what I'm supposed to do here. And they just also can't. The game is expensive.
Yeah.
The game's expensive.
Yeah.
The core set is probably $60.
Yep.
That includes a 3 scenario campaign, which is great to just kind of cut your teeth on, but it's not really the game.
Yeah.
And a bunch of player cards.
Does it give you 4 different classes?
It gives you 5 different investigators to play, and the game plays up to 4 players. And so it gives you 1 of each class and cards for that investigator that they can kind of play with. All the starting investigators have really kind of flexible, easy deck building. And then now what they're doing, this is how the game used to be, which was wild to me. This was before my time. Every 2 weeks, they would release a new scenario as a part of a campaign.
Yeah.
So it was, you'd release the campaign box, which came with 2 scenarios and a bunch of player cards. Then you'd get another pack that had a scenario and some player cards.
Yeah.
2 weeks, you'd have to wait.
Yeah.
And then you get a new one. Now,
it's
say,
all at
screw
once.
that. It's all at once.
Netflix binge model, baby.
Yeah. So how it works now is every expansion comes in 2 parts. There's the player card part, which is like cards you use with new investigators, build new decks. You don't get the campaign, but you might just be replaying old campaigns.
Yeah.
And those are like $40,
Yep.
which is very worth it for everything you get. And then there's the campaign expansion, which gives you the whole 8 scenario campaign. The newest one that just came out, well, I guess newest, it came out at the beginning of this year. Hemlock Vale is coming out at the very start of next year. That's a new one that's coming out, very midsummer vibes. But the one that just came out, the Scarlet Keys, is so replayable, because it literally is a globe-trotting, choose your own adventure, play the scenarios in any order you want kind of thing, where normally it's like, this is scenario 1, that's it, you can't pick different, and this is scenario 2, and you go through. It's very flexible, and just the stuff that they're adding in the game now, it's like they're finding ways to do new stuff,
like new mechanics,
like 10 expansions in.
That's so cool.
But it's not even new mechanics, it's just like new stuff with old, like in Hemlock. Okay, I'm gonna get in the weeds here, but in Hemlock Vale, there's something in the game called parlaying. That's been in the game since the beginning of the game. It's in the first scenario. But it's not really printed on a lot of cards. They don't really care about it. There's a whole investigator now in Hemlock Vale that all they do is parlay. Because they were like, oh wait, parlaying is a thing.
We forgot about that.
10 years in. I'm like, oh my God, it's so good.
It has, if you're looking for a game that you can play for years to go.
Forever.
Like for years to come, just with the stuff that they've already released.
Yes.
And then you're like, and I also want to make sure that this is like, has a life cycle after it. This is a great option for you.
Not to mention all of the fan-made content, which is very good. And it has one of the best like deck building websites of any game. Shout out to ArkhamDB. And it has one of the best like campaign trackers, which is the Arkham Cards app.
It feels very much to me like if you are someone who has played like the original like Pandemic game, and you win every time, and you're like, man, I wish this game was hard as shit.
And it's funny. It's actually really funny because Arkham Horror, like, it does kind of come from this cooperative. Like, it comes from Arkham Horror second edition. But it's like that all Pandemic and all that. They're all of the same ilk, kind of. But then there is a scenario in, I think it's the 5th campaign, the Circle Undone. There's a scenario that is Pandemic. So it's so funny because it's like they started making games within games for every scenario. So it's like, wait, we read the rules that me and my group, and we were like, oh my God, it's Pandemic. So now they're kind of like playing with that, which is really cool.
It's a great game. Like I said, I've only played it like 3 times. I've never played through a full campaign, but every single time when we leave, I'm like, fuck, I want to play that again.
Yeah, and if you ever just want to play as like a little girl with a chainsaw, like Arkham Horror is the game for you, baby. And there are also starter decks. There are starter decks that come with a single, very simple investigator. So if your buddy wants to play with you and you don't have a big collection, you can be like, great, get the Stella Clark solo, just individual deck and come and play with that.
Totally. And it's a great game. It's also one that has a leveling system. So you're earning experience that upgrades cards and does stuff. It's really deep. It's like, it's very, very, very fun. It is one of those unique games that both went wide and deep, where it's like has a lot of content, and it is like you could spend a lot of time just on one campaign, just perfecting it. You know what I mean?
The game is good. The game is good. And even after playing for, I think I've been playing for 2 years now. Like once a week, every week, and we still don't play on hard. Because we get our asses kicked sometimes on standard, and we have a full collection of all the cards.
It's a great game. I have to agree. It's definitely a buy from me as well. But it's for a specific type of person. If you're trying to get your like D&D group or something into something that's a little bit more mechanically driven, something that's like a more board gamey kind of thing, this is a great option. Do we have another card game that we're like really into? I mean, there's always the classics like Dominion and stuff. Those are all very fun. I would say Dominion is definitely like if you're trying to get someone into the building of it. Honestly, the game that comes to mind is not so much a deck builder as an engine builder, but fucking Furnace. Furnace is good.
Furnace is really good.
We got that at PAX Unplugged too. It's a game where you're basically building an engine of capitalism. And it is very fun and very replayable. Lots of different like basically player characters that do different things.
Small box,
Small
mostly
box.
cards. It really is a card game.
Yeah.
And it's also an auction game,
Yep.
but it's very cool. A lot of auction games, like, you have $10, and how many of those $10 do you want to
spend?
Do you want to spend? In this game, it's like you have 4 tokens.
Yeah.
One has a 1 on it. One has a 2 on it. One has a 3 on it, and one. Guess what, Nick? It is a 4 on it. And 4 beats 3, surprisingly enough. So it's like, you just have 4 tokens, and you place them on things that you want.
But it can be really interesting, too, because like you can build your engine to be either very obstructive to other people or very self-reliant. It's like, again, very based on capitalism vibes.
Yeah.
Like you can either be like, I'm going to try to go vertical, baby. And you're like, I make the copper, which turns into this like ingredient I need that churns out money at the end, and I can do it all by myself. I just need to like hoard this one resource. And then the other thing, it's like you could be trying to do a lot of different things, but you're going to be fighting every single turn with the other capitalists who need it. You know what I mean? Like those tokens are very strategic where you're placing them to bid, because if you're like, I really need this amount of ore or this card or whatever, like I need this to happen, I'm putting my 4 down, but that means I'm sacrificing like 2 other cards that would really be nice to have. You know what I mean? Like, it's very, very good. I really like that. We played it a couple times. It was one of my highlights from PAX Unplugged last year.
Oh yeah.
Very, very fun.
I mean, it's called tabletop. You don't talk about video games, do you?
Sometimes.
I mean, if we're gonna talk about deck builders,
I mean,
you got to talk about Slay the Spire.
It's so good. It's so good.
It's just, hey, if your friend who likes games doesn't have Slay the Spire, games of any kind, gift it to them on Steam. It's like $20, and it is one of the best video games of all time.
I've probably oh my god, I've spent like 500 hours in there just because it's a Switch game. If you want it, I would suggest it on the Switch because you can take it on. You can take it on trips. You can take it on the T or whatever. It's like you build a deck on the fly with these different class of characters that all function very differently. There's 4 of them, and I've beaten the game.
Yeah.
With I think every character.
Yeah.
I still play it. I still play it.
So
it just
good.
Scratches your brain in a weird way where you're like, this is the best.
It's the only game I think ever that I've gotten every achievement in. And it's definitely the only game that I've ever gotten every achievement in and kept playing.
Yeah. It's very much like Hades almost, where it's a roguelike. You're just trying over and over and over again. But it's a blast.
And it's not going to be available for a while, but there is a board game coming out.
Yeah, that is a card version of it.
And it's going to be cooperative. It's a buy.
The cooperative portion of it is the thing that I'm the most excited about. It's going to be fucking banging.
It's going to be nuts.
Yeah, so like if you want to get ready for that, gift your friends this game so that they can play and get addicted, and then be like, hey, guess what, guys? We could play this together in person with this deck builder that's coming out.
Once it's in stores. I backed the Kickstarter. I don't think it's coming out even until 2024.
Yeah.
Sad, but whatever.
Dude, I didn't know you backed it. When that comes
you
through,
didn't know I backed it?
You hook me up immediately.
Oh, yeah, I will.
I want to be in the first run through of that
it'll
game.
be, yeah.
Cool. All right. This has been another episode of Tabletops. I hope that you all enjoyed it. These 2 episodes have really just dived into the world of board games. I know that we usually talk about TTRPGs, but I think it's worth it, especially at this time of year. Next episode, we're going to be talking about what we're excited about TTRPG-wise in the coming year, or games that we want to buy and start running for our tables. So that is another thing if you're wanting to get back into the TTRPG of it all. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.